I would have said exactly the opposite from what you're saying here, because
I know that the fresh arrogance, guys. He even didn't know the contract. Unbelievable.
think
With your French arrogance.
I think we're doing exactly that, and I think we're doing it too much even. Because I'll tell you what. You know, you've been in sales. You know how that works.
Yeah.
You have Björn. Can you stop?
Antoine, come on. It looks really that
Anyone
he
would
has no
want
clue
it.
about cooperation. I'm really struggling with this guy.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Everybody, especially you, believe in. I will give you the truth.
Did I ever say I believe them?
Yeah, last week as we had our prep call, we said
I said they detect the trend.
Anyway.
See, he's going off for tangents. He does that all the time. Come win your place on the microphone. He won't stop.
No,
Yeah,
the point is
Like a waterfall.
normally he's talking so mad.
Hey, I don't know if you can see that, but we are pretty cold right now. But still, we're very happy to be here. So hi, Björn.
Hey, welcome Antoine. Welcome February, pretty cold, -degrees. Welcome back to Germany. Hey, this is how it looks like.
But we have a very cool feature. It's this little snow, which makes it all more poetic. So it's really, really cool place to be. And actually, it's a good illustration for the deep dive we have today, because you don't always control the weather, you don't always control the conditions, and when you don't, maybe you want to limit your exposure to risk, which you can do if you go for
The containerized solution. That's what we are going to talk today about. Today we want to talk about what is a container for, what kind of application, what kind of market, how big is the market, what can you do with a container, right? What are the drawbacks, what is on the plus side for a container, you know,
and how would it
there's
evolve
so
in the
much,
future.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, and we even have a cool guest to be covering that topic, but that's a spoiler. So before that, we have your editorial, Björn, which is going to be about...
Hey, we have to celebrate something.
Really?
Last month, you know, your country and my country, we celebrated something. And I would take that and bridge it to the water industry, because I want to go and want to talk about cooperation.
Okay, so actually, I'm also covering something which happened last month, because there were some M&A news, and I'm not covering that specific news. I'm just reflecting a bit on what that tells us about the companies in this water industry. So let's move inside and let's have a look at what we have to celebrate. I'm curious, Björn.
I'm so hopefully it's a little bit more warmer there. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. We are in a particular setting here because we have a bit this container background. You will see a bit later why we have all of that, but we start with our first section, which is Björn's editorial. So Björn, the scene is yours.
Thank you very much, Antoine. I mean, you know, we have something to celebrate, or we celebrated last month something special. I know that with your French arrogance, you don't know that, but we celebrated the 60-year anniversary between France and Germany. Have you recognized that?
6 years anniversary of what?
Of the friendship contract between France and Germany. In 1963, January 22nd, both countries signed that. Well, you know, remember, it was about after the war, blah, 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 all these things. And the purpose of that, and then I will come to the point what this has to do with the water industry. The purpose of that is that the prime ministers and really the executives, the high levels, are coming together multiple times over the year to exchange ideas, looking forward to drive the countries forward and things like that. Similar thing we have, for instance, for cities. We have partner cities. You know, if you go to a city somewhere in Germany or in France, you will find, okay, it does have a partner city somewhere in UK, in France, wherever, and they also come together. They want to share ideas. And the question I have is, or let's say other way around, do you remember last time we've been to Copenhagen, IWA? You remember? What was the conclusion out of that? One of them was cooperation.
Collaboration.
Cooperation. And I'm still missing the link that we are not cooperative enough with each other.
You mean France and Germany?
No, I mean the water industry at all. And here's the link. You know, it was just a nice story to tell you, okay? Because even on that level, executive level, they do that. And they have contracts. And this contract is law, by the way. This friendship contract between Germany and France is law, because both parliaments, they signed for that. But still, I don't see inside the water industry really the cooperation aspect. If you look, for instance, I know that you blame me for that, but if you go to the automotive industry.
Oh, shit. here we go again.
They come together. Daimler and Mercedes are coming together. Yeah, you're laughing, but it's always the same. They are developing.
It's always the same example. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, but they develop something. For instance, the Charge Now. And why do they do that? They don't want that someone else is coming with another platform and then they take the lead and they have to follow. Where is that in the water industry? I don't see that. I mean, we have so many ideas how you can cooperate together. I mean, you can have joint venture, you can just have exchange of ideas, you can have just, putting projects together and subcontract something, or you're going together for a tender or something like that. Sometimes that happens, right? Because you have to, because you don't have everything in your scope. I'm pretty sure that even here, if you are here in the container, there are multiple companies who are supplying something, and sometimes you have to offer and go for a tender together. But where is really, the cooperation? Where are really, the companies who are inviting startups? We have tons of startups meanwhile. Why not inviting them together and get a fresh mind, get a fresh idea? Where are the conferences, or let's say the in-house, call it seminars or whatever, where you bring in other companies to get their idea, their technology to fresh it? Where is the cooperation?
That's happening all the time.
I don't see that.
That's really happening all the time. I mean, let me give you two examples.
Okay.
The first example would be 𝘮𝘴𝘀 with the 𝘮𝘴𝘀 Innovation Labs, which is meant for exactly that. My second example would be...
Okay. But 𝘮𝘴𝘀, why are they doing that? They do it for a purpose, and we discussed it a couple of times. Why are they having this innovation program? I mean, they want to be the first. If this startup is successful, they want to apply the technology.
Yeah, but you're calling for collaboration. They do collaboration, and then you point them out and say, hey, should they do that?
Yeah, okay. 𝘮𝘴𝘀, they have a program. I know that Ecolab, for instance, they have a similar program, or Kurita in Japan, they have a program.
That was going to be my next example, Kurita.
I'm
just back from Singapore, and in Singapore, I met 𝘵𝘰𝘱𝘐, and 𝘵𝘰𝘱𝘐 is tailoring some specific programs for Kurita, for instance, where they bring together a selection of their portfolio companies, and they bring them in front of Kurita so that they can exchange, so that the startups benefit from the experience from an installed company within that sphere, and of course, Kurita gets a bit of this fresh blood from the startups, fresh ideas. So it's happening.
Yeah, but only you have some lighthouse, call it this way, lighthouse companies who do that because of the sake of the purpose that they want to secure once the issue. But where are the other corporations?
I think it's not a lighthouse topic. I think it is really the systematic way this industry is ticking. I would have said exactly the opposite from what you're saying here, because if you look at how much companies are spending in R&D, look at a company like Suez, Veolia, they spend less than 1% of their top line revenue in R&D.
And what is the percentage you have to invest to be a good company?
There is no absolute rule. What I'm saying is that...
There is an absolute rule.
No. Because the way the industry is working is that they don't need to invest in R&D, assuming that they do exactly what you say they don't do, which I do believe they do, which is to discuss with external company and do like external innovation. I do know that the theory is that you should invest 6 or 8% of your top line revenue in R&D. But if you invest it not in R&D, but in partnership with startups, ecosystems,
but where is that?
As well.
Where is that?
Everywhere.
But you named the big companies which have the number. Just 2 months ago, you mentioned 𝘮𝘴𝘀. They acquired 𝘴𝘵𝘱𝘴, so that means they have deep pockets at the moment, right? So there is some money. But I'm really talking about the mid-sized companies.
So who? Because to my knowledge, and that
the hundreds we have, for instance, here in Germany and in France,
that is
which
a good
have
example
just
you're
the
giving,
technology.
It's not hundreds, because
there are tons.
We are today at EnviroChemie, right?
We are here. Look into that containers.
Okay.
How many suppliers of technology, of different technologies you have here?
No, my point,
maybe we can find.
I'll let you rant. Let's give
30.
you 30 seconds for give you my points, and then you can rant how much you want. We are at EnviroChemie. EnviroChemie Beyond to Ski on Water.
Sure.
When I was interviewing Reinhard Hübner on that microphone for my podcast, what he told me is that he would be happy to acquire more of the mid-sized company. They just don't exist.
But
so you know the market better than Reinhard.
But that is not what I mean. That is not what I mean. What did Lars in Copenhagen told us? He said they are coming together, research institute, R&D companies, tech companies. They are coming together with utilities, sit together, brainstorm ideas, and then they go out to the market, or everybody goes, follow this way. What you are saying, the example with Reinhard, he's saying, well, yeah, if you have a cool idea, come to me, send me an email, and maybe we acquire you. This is not a kind of cooperation. That is not the kind of cooperation.
If you could just stop distorting what I'm saying sometimes, that would be great. I didn't say that.
That's what you said.
Say, what do the middle company do? I just tell you, from what I hear, the middle company don't exist. That's all my point.
You are saying the middle companies doesn't exist.
No, you have big ones and small ones.
All the companies, which are supplying here, they are either small or big.
Okay,
right?
Find me a middle-sized company in what we have here. Find me one.
Find me one.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have here a small ACL company from Italy.
Okay, editor Antoine here. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to give Björn a point because even though he says
I have
small,
no clue who that is.
in all fairness, I looked up the company. They are called 𝘴𝘵𝘀, and arguably they are a mid-sized company. So forget what I said, and we're back to live.
But how's the cooperation with kind of these companies? It looks
Okay,
like that they supply something for the company,
That's a
for the
sidetrack.
water industry.
I
But
think
go
you are-
back to the point, and that's why I know that the fresh arrogance guys, even didn't know the contract, unbelievable. But they are coming together once in a year. All I'm saying is, the Scandinavian model we learned at IWA in Copenhagen is really that they're coming together, that they're open for fresh minds to exchange idea, not in the purpose to acquire or to merge with another company. Really in terms of cooperation. And I think we should follow this one. I know that you, with your French arrogance...
I think we're doing exactly that, and I think we're doing it too much even. Because I'll tell you what. You know, you've been in sales. You know how that works.
Yeah.
You're preparing for a tender. So you have a consulting engineer which is on that tender who is consulting and
that is not cooperation. That is not
cooperating. Everybody gives me good ideas, everything, and then you have 2-3 years where you're just writing specs. And once
but that
it's
is
done,
not cooperation. That is not fresh
6-7 years
ideas.
just because everybody is bringing their ideas on the table, and there are too much ideas on the table.
That is what you're describing is that the purchasing department and the sales is going and say, hey, buy my pipe, hey, buy my valve. That is not cooperation. That is not exchanging ideas.
It has nothing to... Björn, can you stop?
Antoine, come on.
It has nothing to do with purchasing.
It has totally, because you are educating
Björn,
just one department.
Can you stop just distorting whatever I'm saying? I'm saying that... Let's take your favorite example, a micropollutant treatment plant. When you have a micropollutant treatment plant, long before we speak of any kind of purchasing, an engineering bureau is going to go to all the companies and say, what are your ideas? What would you do? Can you help me write my specs? That lasts 3 years. There is no sales involved. There is no purchasing involved.
And you are saying that is a kind of cooperation we are looking for?
Of course it is.
Oh my God.
I'm not saying we're looking for, I'm saying it's existing and it is too much. Because then you end up with Frankenstein where everybody has given their idea and then it doesn't resemble anything that could be achievable.
Please kill me.
Or even
it looks really that he has no clue about cooperation. I'm really struggling with this guy.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
We should invite the Scandinavian guys back, right? And they should teach you again. I mean, coming together, having just ideas how to solve something, bringing ideas, technologies, as we have, for instance, on the conference.
All the time.
No, it's not. It was a purpose of selling something. If you go to EnviroChemie here to the procurement department and say, I have the best pipe in the world because I want to get rid of these, that is not cooperation.
Not at
Come
all.
on.
That's not the point.
But that's what you said.
Last month, because it's live, it's not recorded, guys. I was in Australia, just coming back. So when I was in Australia, I've met with companies where I will never sell anything to them, some of the one I met, and they will never sell anything to me. But they are working on the same project I do work, and they are working on the same problems I do work. So we are cooperating. They come with ideas for on-site water reuse, they come with ideas for water reclamation, they come for ideas for this kind of stuff, which goes in the middle of a mining site. And it is cooperation. Because they have no clue about the part I have a clue about, and I have no clue about the part they are expert in. So we are coming together and we are cooperating. Björn, I'm sorry for you if in that industry you never had that experience of cooperation. I can present you people which are already cooperating. You'll see it's a safe space. It's a great industry which is working together.
I think the issue is that you have, maybe with your mentality, you have a different aspect for a cooperation as all others have. Maybe I'm more on the Scandinavian side as you with your French perspective that you always want to sell something because you have, or you want to acquire someone.
Let me repeat what I just said. I didn't look for acquiring or selling anything. It was pure cooperation. There are problems which we can solve if we team up. That's happening. We didn't wait for you to advise us.
But then I'm happy that you had the experience. But I know so many others.
It's happening every day.
No, it's not. How can you say that it happens all over the day?
How can I say? Because I'm seeing it, and it is true.
Yeah, but you are so long just with the big corporates. I think the smaller and the mid-sized companies are a little bit better. And I can tell you, they were never invited to get the ideas. Only if they have to sell something or whatever.
I'm working every day with 10 to 30 people companies. So that means if they work with me, and by the way, come work with me, they have a good collaboration experience. So I don't get your point.
okay, if you don't get my point, it's a very sad story.
No, it's sad for you.
No, it's not sad for me, but let's say we have a different perspective and we can agree that we disagree on that. I would like to see that more. And even IWA Copenhagen, you was on that point from Lars and from all the others, we were saying, well, cooperation is a thing we need more. And you was the first thing raised your hand. Yes, we do.
For utilities. That's the thing which I don't understand, because I would say the small and the water industry part, I mean, is cooperating by default just because we don't own the full vertical, so we have to cooperate one way or the other in any kind of the
True.
Utilities don't do that. Utilities live in their own world, which sometimes can be pretty close. There are exceptions, and
Okay.
they are great utilities which are also collaborating. But it is by far not the rule. You will hear, oh yeah, cool idea, but I'm doing my job for 40 years, so don't tell me what I should be changing. There, I would be with you. If you say that utilities shall be cooperating more, which is what Lars was saying in AWA, and that's why I was
No,
surprised.
Lars was from the utility,
Exactly.
but he was saying
Because
that
hearing that from a utility was
utility was just
refreshing.
one point. We had also DHI on our booth, which was saying, well, they are also part of this kind of cooperation. They are industry, clearly.
And they
So,
already
well,
do it, yeah? So there's nothing more to do.
Yeah, but that was a Scandinavian model. I think, and that is, I stand my point, we don't see that enough in our industry. We should do more. And we should take an example on the German Franco contract between our countries. Happy anniversary, Antoine, to our friendship.
Sounds like a good conclusion. I propose you to switch to my top 3. I still disagree with you, but you will not more agree with me. So let's switch to the next section. This time, my top 3 is quite different from your topic.
Oh, really?
Nevertheless, you've talked a bit about a piece of it, because of course you would have to be living on the moon not to have heard that 𝘮𝘴𝘪𝘐 and 𝘴𝘵𝘢 might very soon come together. I mean, if everything goes through by mid-2023, they will come together. That's not the topic of my top 3, but it made me realize something, which is that the water industry is kind of a weird animal when it comes to its finances. There was an article made by Global Water Intelligence who was listing a bit the involvement of venture capital. And they do that everywhere, where they sum up everything which venture capital has been doing that year within the water industry. And every year they draw somewhat the same conclusion, which is not much interest from the venture capital.
But it's an injustice, it is.
And we're a bit shocked because the other sectors are getting so much money, they get showered with money.
They're big and I'm little, but it's an injustice, it is.
Some trillions, and we get some hundreds of millions. Don't get me wrong, I would be very happy to get the hundreds of millions.
I like money.
But it is true that if you compare it with other scenes, it is low. Now the question is, why so? Because low level of venture capital is, when you think of it, absolutely logical.
But hasn't it increased over the last years?
Yeah, when you start from pretty low, you can only
Sure.
increase. Hi, Editor Antoine interrupting again to bring a bit of nuance and data into these investment trends. 2022 has seen $650 million of venture investment in water against $470 million in 2021 and $325 million in 2020, according to GWI. In the meantime, global venture investments has been over a roller coaster with $345 billion in 2020, $681 billion in 2021, and $445 billion in 2022. So indeed, venture investment in water grows relatively, as it went from 0.09% of all venture investments to 0.14%. But still, we're talking of 1 out of 1,000 venture dollars which goes to water. Back to life. But actually, it makes sense that venture capital doesn't get that much interested in water because, as you know, we don't have an existing water unicorn. We had half unicorns.
Half unicorns, come on, we discussed that.
But not a real unicorn. So after all that introduction, where do I head with my top 3? Actually, I found out that there is nevertheless still some finance people who seem to be making good money within the water space. And I found that out when I looked at the capital of 𝘮𝘴𝘪𝘐 and the capital of 𝘴𝘵𝘀, because I just noticed that there were big things in common. BlackRock, the Vanguard Group, they were holding 10% of each company. I'm like, interesting. I haven't noticed personally. I'm not a finance guy. I'm a layman. I'm a muggle. Don't scream behind your screen by saying, oh, we all knew that. I know you knew, but I didn't. You probably knew because you're the guy who reads the report. But I just realized that those big funds are invested in our industry. And the reason why I make all that introduction is actually you'll see that the top 3 itself is very short. So what I try to understand is what are they investing in and how are they doing that? And actually, when you look at it, both Vanguard and BlackRock, what they do is that they build an ETF. If you want to invest in water, but you don't want to choose one specific share and you're not sure what would be the right fit, you invest in the ETF they do that for you.
Do you?
I don't.
I have one.
Okay, in what do you invest?
And I don't know which, is it an European ETF, which invests in the 20 biggest, or let's say the 20 biggest water companies. Since 1.5 years, debt minus.
That's the other point. It's when you look at both Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and all the big European places, they have the water indexes. So where they put the water companies and you can see that index.
True.
And those indexes go down. I mean, if you invest your money in your water index, the saying is that on the long run, water scarcity is going to be on the rise, more people. So it will make money, but today it's losing money, which is also the reason why would you invest in water if you're just losing money? And these ETF do better than the market, but still on a 10 years time, they're making some money, but on the 1.5 year time you were just mentioning, they are losing money.
What I can say from my experience is that, let's say they haven't really recovered after the COVID thing. During COVID, everything went down dramatically, right? And the DAX, the German pendant, the Nasdaq, even the Dow came up even over the last 6 months, right? But the ETF for the water industry is still in red, especially for me.
So actually, my top 3, and then I'd like to discuss that with you, is about, let's play it as a quiz. I called it the shareholder's darling. So if you are one of these ETF or one of these investment funds, and you're looking into investing in water companies, what are the ones you invest in, the 3 most invested, and which would hence also get the highest ratio between their actual valorization and their real revenues? So what would be number 3? What's the biggest company in the world? Veolia, clear?
No, it is.
In terms of revenue?
In terms of revenue, I think so, yes.
Yeah, and Veolia is by far not the highest valorized company by the financial markets. And that came in as a surprise because Veolia was number 1, both the number 2. You could expect that even though maybe the P/E ratio is not that high, they still would be the highest valorization, but they are not.
Yeah, well, what I've realized is that the most companies my ETF is into are American ones. And some, they have just a side business. I mean, 𝘴𝘵𝘱, for instance, good example, 𝘴𝘵𝘱. We all know 𝘴𝘵𝘱 for our toilets, most of us.
Swiss company.
It's a Swiss company, it's a European company, but they have just a minor section really, from my perspective, for the water industry. But they belong to the water industry from the financial perspective.
Yes. The same happens for my company. I mean, I belong to GF Piping Systems, but GF Piping Systems is one of the 3 divisions of 𝘵𝘱𝘴𝘪 AG. The other divisions are automotive, so casting solutions and machining solutions.
Yeah.
And within Piping Systems, all we do doesn't belong to water, a good portion of it, but not everything.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, BlackRock has us in their ETF, Vanguard has we are in all these ETFs, and with a good share, just because we are listed as a water company. So you're right, that's the first discrepancy. But even among the water companies, there's, I would say, a subset of water companies which are sexy or sexier, which you see in all the ETFs. There are various ETFs, but they all have those companies in common. My number 3 would be Danaher, which you see everywhere. And then the 2 next ones, so my number 2 and my number 1, are actually the 2 biggest valorizations there is out there in the market.
What is that?
It's American Water Works, so it's a utility, private, but it's a utility, and that's also the best investment you could have made, because when they went public at $17 or $18, and nowadays they are trading at $150 per share. So I did the calculation. I think you have a compound annual growth rate if you stay invested in them of about 10%. Kind of an incredible return, knowing that what they do is being a water utility. So really shows you which part of the industry is sexy. Mm-hmm. And number 1, a bit more easy, I guess.
Which one?
Ecolab. Arguably, as you said, Ecolab doesn't do only water, does bits more water than 𝘵𝘵𝘱𝘴𝘪 would, but still, that is by far, when you look at the valuation, the sexiest water company. Ecolab, as we're recording that, it might be evolving because, everything moves in that word, but they are valorized around 40 billion. When they are, now that Xylem and Evoqua come together, arguably only the 3rd company in the world. So they are valued at double Veolia when they do in terms of water revenue, maybe twice less or 3 times less than the new Veolia. So It shows that what financials, when they look at our sector, what they see is if you operate, you're in a very good position because that is a steady business, will never get disrupted. Prices go up, not to the extent they should maybe, but they go up, and you can win more business by having new people connecting to the same network. So you're leveraging your network and nobody asks you to maintain your network, so you can still live on that. And the other thing is this Ecolab, which is like technology companies or chemical companies.
Another company you can find on each and every list for the biggest ETF is PAL.
Not that much. I didn't find they're not in BlackRock. They are not in.
They're not in BlackRock. That doesn't mean. But the European ones, the European ETFs, they have listed PAL. So now I was wondering why PAL, and it turned out, I mean, PAL is a bigger company than we here with our European glasses on see that. They have a huge portion for the water industry with their membranes, clearly. And they have a huge business over there in the US. So they are bigger than sometimes me. I'm here also the layman and the muggle. But for me, PAL was a membrane supplier. Maybe they have also small containers, but they are bigger than we all think. That was a really surprise for me that I looked into the ETF and I found, okay, that's PAL. But back to your top three. What is your point?
My point is there are several discrepancies. The first discrepancy is we are expecting venture money, and I don't get why we should expect venture money. That's not going to happen. So I think we should stop complaining about venture doesn't invest in us. Yes, venture will not invest in us, and that's it. The second thing is we are looking into the water revenue, and we do believe that if we have a high water revenue, we will be forward looking. Well, it sounds like not so much. You have to be in the right section of the water revenue. And the third is like, if you want to be forward looking in that sector, look at two very specific subsets of the industry, which is operation of the utilities, because there is a real need there, and the technology element. Don't be an EPC. That's a shitty position.
I have just a question. I mean, if you say we don't get venture capital, for instance, what would be your whys to a company who wants to go to the market? A startup. Take an example, 2 years back, 374 went to IPO, they came to the market, NX Filtration went to IPO. What would be your advice if you say, wow, venture capital is not that what you get?
I think hypergrowth, and it's something which I have frantically asked to my podcast guest for a while. It was one of the questions I was bringing up all the time because I wanted to wrap my head around it. Is hypergrowth something possible or even desirable in the water industry? Nobody ever said yes. Different reasons, but nobody ever said that hypergrowth was possible or would be desirable. So it sounds like there is a consensus from the food industry that hypergrowth is not possible, and venture is the vehicle for hypergrowth. So if we say hypergrowth is not possible, we cannot on the same hand say, oh, and venture doesn't invest in us. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. If you're a specific subset of this industry, if you're atmospheric water generation,
biggest investment 2022,
then maybe, assuming you can back your claims, which is at some point water is going to be almost free and doesn't require a network, then that has hypergrowth potential. But if not, I will have to come back to the study. It's been a while. I haven't name dropped it, so I have to. Paul O'Callaghan's study of the dynamics of water innovation. It takes
a while.
16 to 25 years if you're successful to be in the middle of the market. That's not hypergrowth. And it's not a problem. It's just that we've been raised with this idea that success is being Twitter or Uber, or maybe not Twitter anymore, but Uber.
But we have more and more companies coming to the market, which coming with a platform. I'm thinking, for instance, about Can-Do. They have a kind of platform. They are coming with a kind of SaaS solution. We have other companies, Clear, for instance. You know Clear because they were guests on your podcast as well. We discussed that. Would you say that applies for them as well? Was a Paul O'Callaghan study? Or is a Paul O'Callaghan study more on the technology? For instance, if you would have seaweed membranes, generation second, whatever, right? That you are saying, well, if I have a technology, it takes 10 to 15 years to mature.
You're right. Paul's study, and by the way, Paul, I want a royalty because the book is out. Go get the book. It's really interesting, and I don't get a cent on the book, but still, Paul's study is really on the hardware side of it. So you're right. Nevertheless, even if you're a platform, be it Clear, Can-Do, Catium, all the different platforms which are building up, there's maybe one more accelerating scale factor because you're digital, you can do everything as a service. Yes, that's right. But still, you have to deal with the vertical you're in. If you are Can-Do, you are dealing with wastewater networks.
Sure.
It's hard to disrupt wastewater networks.
But that's what they try, right?
Not
the network.
Sure.
How do you monitor? How you?
That's my point. I'm not sure they try to disrupt it, and I think they're right not to try to disrupt it. They try to make it better and to build build a steady, sustainable growth. And our sector caters for steady, sustainable growth. Hence, to go back to my top 3, American Water Works, that company exists for 2 centuries. It's a steady, sustainable growth. Ecolab, that company is not anything new and not anything incredibly fancy.
But it started from zero and have merged with multiple other companies over the time.
Yes.
That's why they are that big, right? And even they have just a small portion for the water industry.
What I'm saying is that you have different growth model. If you take the venture startup growth model, it means first year you multiply by 3, second year you multiply by 3, third year you multiply by 2, fourth year you multiply by 2. That's crazy growth. 300%, 300%, 200%, 200%. When you have a very successful company in the water industry, it's gonna make maybe double up the first year, then 30%, then another 30%, and then a steady 20%. And that is incredible in that sector because it is above what any of the other companies are doing.
So if I understand you right, that's why you're saying we are not sexy enough because our increase is just 20%, 30%, whatever, and not double up this year, double up next year.
It's not a matter of sexy enough. It's a matter, I mean,
sexy for
we're
investors.
not sexy for venture because venture is taking a big risk and is giving you loads of money when you are hardly able to receive it because you're really in your baby steps and you might die and they don't care because they invest in 20 companies. I'll certainly care about losing some millions, but not that much because one of the companies is going to recover that. Do that in the water industry, you will never recover it because none of these companies is going to have a boom, explosive growth. But we are sexy for the BlackRocks of this world, which have to look to something which guarantees their yields over 10, 20 years, which is never going to crash because agriculture will still need water, industry will still need water, and people will still need water. So it's steady, it's reliable, it's one of the layers of this investment cake. And we have to be, I guess, honest with ourselves about the place we have in that investment cake.
What do you say to investment companies, for instance, like XPV? They just invest in water companies. So if I understand you right, on the one hand, you're saying, well, don't expect to have the next unicorn. You will have maybe stable growth, maybe not, whatever, but it will not grow that fast. Do they have the same expectation? Or do they have an expectation? I mean, think about it. I mean, we had EnviroChemie, 𝘮𝘴𝘀, right? 𝘮𝘴𝘀 is also similar like that. They have an expectation. So you're saying that they don't have an expectation.
I'm not saying they don't have an expectation.
No. As there was the sentence was not ready. As for instance, BlackRock.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it's what you're naming now with XPV or with 𝘮𝘴𝘀 are again another layer which fits as well to the industry. Remember, we had that conversation, I think, off the record with Reinhard when we were done at the IFAT. I think you asked him what 𝘮𝘴𝘀 was in for the long term. We are inside a 𝘮𝘴𝘀 company, so I guess I can speak about it. And I'm not saying anything too touchy. He said clearly they are in that game for the long run. They want to build fast because they want to reach that scale.
But is the different approach? I mean, this is 𝘮𝘀 family. They are more family owned, and that's why they really want to play the really long game. XPV, they are not for the long game.
Okay, XPV. XPV is a bit to a different scale what John Robinson was telling me from Mazarin, which is he looks at an exit within 6 to 7 years.
Exactly.
But an exit to someone who will take to the next step and to the next step and to the next step. And for those people, the interesting thing is another section of Paul O'Callaghan's study, which is looking at the survival rates of the water companies. The water companies don't die. Here we are. They might be living in Valhalla and in a limbo place where you don't want to be.
Exactly.
But they don't die. Meaning that in the worst case scenario, the money you've invested in is going to be worth a bit less, but it's not going to be going to zero.
No, someone will come and will acquire you, and you're part of a group, even if you don't have any money and you don't get any money, and then they will sell you to the next, and then you will disappear.
If I want to be
slowly.
bitchy, let's look at your previous company. 𝘮𝘀𝘴𝘪𝘤.
𝘮𝘮𝘴𝘪𝘤, yes.
Okay.
𝘮𝘮𝘴𝘪𝘤, sorry.
Because they had to change the name because they went bankrupt and then they came back.
2014, and then they came back with SH&E. Before that, it was 𝘮𝘮𝘴𝘪𝘤, yes.
How often did they die? Because at some point we were part of the same company.
Yes, but let's say before that, I don't know. But let's say there were a couple of critical situations, things like that, and yeah.
A water company doesn't die. A water company goes through a phase where they struggle with cash or they struggle with the project.
That's a good news, right? So that means if you build up a water company, you will never die. That's what he's saying.
But I'm not saying I envy you, because if you're in that phase where you're always struggling for cash and you are going from pilot to pilot, I mean, it's what many call death by piloting, and it's not much better.
Crossing the chasm.
Yeah.
Crossing the chasm. That is the biggest issue. Final question: why you're not investing in ETFs? Do you don't believe in the water industry?
I'm not investing in ETF because I have 3 kids. I've bought a hose.
Me too.
And I simply don't even get how you get to €1 additional at the end of the month, which you can invest in anything.
Okay, I will give you some investment
I will need
tips
some investment
after the
advice.
show.
So that show is not investment advice, so don't come to us and say, but for sure, on top of the show not being investment advice, don't come to me for personal finances. I'm the worst with that, because the reason why I can look at you here, and probably even there, it's because I love cameras. So whenever I have €1, I'm investing in a camera. So
Which is true, by the way.
so you see, I'm not speaking for myself, but I'm speaking for...
You know, the reason why I think it was 3 years back. 3 years back, and I was thinking, you know, my company and I have a goal that I want to invest part of the money into help for the water industry. And the other thing I was thinking to myself, I have to prove I am part of the water industry. That means I have to invest. I have to give some money into that game. And I just was looking for ETFs. So I believe in the industry, and that's why I invested in that. I'm not like you.
I would definitely believe if I had money that I have. So maybe I should start my own company.
You should.
Or maybe not. Anyways, I think that was it for my top 3 for this month. I'd be very curious if you're looking into other type of vehicles, if you have an informed opinion on this investment sphere. I'm going to read and have a look at all your comments, because I think there's a lot of value to extract there. But that being said, I think we're going to switch to our deep dive and to explain the word why we are sitting in a container.
I don't know, really. You said you want to go to container.
Let's go.
Do you want to use water responsibly for industrial processes? For more than 45 years, EnviroChemie plans, constructs and operates water and wastewater treatment systems. These include energy and resource-efficient solutions for water recycling, water reuse or for the treatment of processed water, cooling water or wastewater, and for resource recovery. In terms of plant operation, EnviroChemie offers comprehensive services, operation management, contracting and water treatment chemicals. Particularly practical for plant operation and optimization are the services provided by the Water Expert digital service platform, which gives operators a simple plant overview at any time. The water treatment experts develop various technologies and water treatment chemicals in their process engineering labs and technology center. EnviroChemie delivers water technology that is made in Germany throughout the world. EnviroChemie is a member of the EnviroWater Group, a strong network of companies with specialists in the solution of a broad range of requirements for sustainable water treatment.
Finally, we will discover why we are standing in a container, because we have one more guest with us. Hi, Niklas. Welcome.
Hey, welcome.
Well, actually, I'm saying welcome, but you should say welcome because you know what we are standing in. So what is that container?
Yeah, so we call this the EnviroChemie module. It's not a container. We say that it's a technical room for water treatment applications.
It's a water room.
It's a technical room.
Technical room.
Technical room, yeah, because it has much more to offer than just a container. If you look around, you have like really the inside is different. You have walls inside, you have technical equipment, you have a pen floor where when there is some leakage on the floor, the water is draining down. You also have the outside painting, which is waterproof. So there's also a coating on that. It's really different than just a normal sea container. And you have heating, cooling, etc.
I wanted to say that exactly. Since Niklas is back in the container, we also have heating because we were stupid. We didn't find out how to put the heating. And now I have to say, it's a bit easier to be standing here. So thank you for that. What is your position within EnviroChemie?
I'm working as a process engineer in designs and sales department for 4 years now. My main topic is water recycling applications, and as this is also in some areas, it is really tough to applicate the treatment plants. EnviroChemie models are really a good way to serve the customer needs.
That's a perfect transition. I mean, today we want to talk really about containerized solutions for water treatment, for wastewater treatment. And guys, the first question I have for you, have you ever served for your country? Have you served, Antoine? I don't know.
That's the question of the guy who was in the army. No, I didn't.
Have you served?
No,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
The
matter.
French army has been one of my best customers when I was selling containers. So if that's where you're going to,
Exactly, because I was serving, and 25 years back, because in preparation for the show, I was thinking about that because we wanted to talk about containerized solution. And I was living in ex-Yugoslavia, and the German Bundeswehr at this time, they had, even today, they have in Afghanistan, no longer in Afghanistan, but they have in their countries where they deploy the people to, they have these containerized villages.
Yeah.
And part of that, I mean, I lived in this kind of village. I mean, there are containers where you can sleep, but there are also containers where you can your daily needs, right? For fresh water and for your wastewater. The question really is, where does this market for these containerized goes to for you guys?
what you're mentioning here is rather mobile than decentralized.
Well, I mean, exactly a good point, because even today, I mean, we have containerized solution. Yes, that is the overall, let's say, wording. And we have mobile solutions. That means we send it for a short period of time. I'm pretty sure that, for instance, Afghanistan, if we still talk about the Bundeswehr, I'm not sure whether the containers are still there because they just run away, or normally they take the containers back and then you can do whatever you wanted. What do you do, for instance, with the containers? If you deploy this to the customer, and the customer comes to you and say in 2 years, hey, Niklas, I don't need it anymore. Can you take it back?
Normally they do not say that because they're quite confident with the applications. So there are different fields of applications. In recent time, we have more renting applications also for that, but also remote areas are quite common, especially if you have like in the mining industry, where you have open mining pits or really remote areas. Yeah, you can even fly them in with helicopters and everything is set up. That's quite good. But also we have other applications where the customer do not want to deal with the issues of building construction. So as this is a mobile application, there is no permits to be made for the building construction. So that is a really good benefit. And also the other things around. So also security while erecting. So you're cutting the erecting time at least by half. And so there's a lot of benefits.
So on one end, you don't need to get any construction permits because it is a container. So you need a slab and you put the container on it. And on the other hand, you are not causing trouble with the erection site because all of that is done somewhere in cold but beautiful Germany and then sent to somewhere in the world.
Everything is prefabricated here, so the customer can also come already here.
But that's a big business model, isn't it? I mean, I remember 10 years back, after the army time, after I started water industry, we were looking with one of your colleagues, with 𝘮𝘯𝘪𝘐 from Falk, EnviroFalk, and we were looking to build up a kind of pilot system. So we went a little bit over the market, and we are looking to people, or let's say companies, who wanted to get rid of their container because they purchased for whenever, right? And then the time is coming and they don't need that anymore. And we purchase one of these containers and then we refurbish that for our purposes, and then we give it back to the pilot or whatever customer, right? Is that really a business model? Because I see more and more of these companies coming up. I mean, you mentioned...
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity for two different reasons. The first is, if you're an industrial, I mean, an open mine is something different, but if you are on an industrial site, you might be producing a certain type of chemical, and because trend changes and evolve and regulation change, you might stop producing that one, so the treatment you have is no longer the right one. So you will have to give back your container, or you go out of business. Not what I would wish to you, but it might happen, in which case the container can have a second life. I was a couple of weeks ago in Australia with 𝘮𝘮𝘮𝘀, and they just had taken back 7 or 8 different containers which they had at a specific site. A portion of it was to be refurbished, so whatever membranes were inside had to be scrapped and replaced, but the container itself, the infrastructure, the installation, the heating, the pipings, the valve, the actuators, they could be reused, which is not the case here because you're not using the right brand. But would you be using the right? No, joke.
But I have seen this even from 𝘮𝘮𝘮𝘀 and from other companies as well in the Middle East. They really purchase used equipment, refurbish this in a kind of way, and then they give them a second life to the market. But what I have really seen also is that these kind of companies are a little bit struggling because the market is pretty small. If you talk in general about
it's a niche.
About the containerized market, we are talking about 3.6 billion, something like that, right? That is somehow the market.
It depends the exception.
No, it depends a little bit on which bloody study you are reading. But let's assume there is a market for that, and then even that is a
just
small...
for the record, my number is 7 for containers and 9 for containers plus packaged. So the truth might be somewhere in between. It gives just a magnitude.
Sorry. Yeah, I think we should have one edition about these bloody reports everybody, especially you, believe in. I will give you the truth.
Did I ever say I believe them?
Yeah, last week as we had our prep call, you said
I said they detect the trend.
Anyway.
C is going off for tangents. It does that all the time.
Anyway, but let's say these kind of rented container market, I think even that is a small niche market inside a niche market of our industry, isn't it?
Yeah, but rented is not the core of what you do.
Well, we're also renting.
You also, but it's not the core.
It's not a core business. Well, it's another business which is quite profitable as it is just temporarily for the customer. So yeah, he can then decide if he wants to take over the system, if it's appropriate for him.
What is the number one reason why a customer is saying, I need a containerized solution instead of having, let's say, a fixed installation?
I would say that you want to have it like a turnkey solution. So
what do you mean turnkey? You can deliver, let's say, fixed without
Plug and
any
play.
containers.
well, yeah, normally we do not do building stuff like this. So we have the cut lines. So the water treatment plant itself, this is our business and not the building things around. So, but with this EnviroChemie model, we are also able to deliver turnkey solutions. In some cases, we're also delivering more, but this is our core business in that way. Yeah, this is really a benefit for the customer that he can say, well, I have this wastewater and I want this water quality out of it, and we are doing the rest with it.
But why containerized, especially containerized? I mean,
What would be the alternative? Skidded?
for instance, why not? Why not put it
I
on
guess
a
the
skid?
transport isn't exactly the same when you're skidding something than if you're putting it in a container.
Yeah.
It's harder to heat a skid.
Well,
I
it
guess.
depends whether you need any heat. I mean, there are regions in the world where you don't need any
Okay,
heat.
then it's harder to cool a skid
True.
if you don't heat it.
So, but that would mean if you have these reasons, then we should have just containerized solutions all over.
Well, it's also a cost thing. Yeah. Well, this
Exactly.
is the downside of it. You really have to invest a little bit more. You also have to calculate it against your building, what you're constructing, and this has to be well admitted. I would say the most benefit is for the customer that if he pays the money, he has some service less, building permits, etc., and also safety while erection. So there's also a customer who said there is really much safety issues when you're doing constructions. That's really dangerous sometimes. There's no problem then anymore.
There's a topic of liability as well, I would say. How do you typically do? Do you sometimes operate your containers or do you really just sell them? I'm thinking, if you have some elements of operation, be it a build, operate, transfer,
Water as a
so it will be
service.
over 1 or 2 years, or if it's water as a service, which is then another one. But then the building, assuming it's not in a container, has to be perfect. Because if anything in the building goes wrong, it's not your fault, but you are liable because you are delivering a system which is supposed to work. Whereas if you put it in a container, it's a controlled environment with a flange in front, a flange in the back, and then whatever happens you control
back
everything
box,
in between.
And this is also really the challenge of it, to build it that everything is practical inside. Because afterwards, it's really tough to reorganize everything. So you really have to make sure that the purpose for which it is taken is really well thought and everything is good organized.
But I think it's still these containerized systems is still a niche market, isn't it? Inside of the water industry. If you take the entire water industry at all the installations, how much really is the part for containerized?
5%.
5%. So pretty small.
What's the largest water company market share?
In market share,
4 to 5%. So
I think
Veolia does 4 to 5% of the market, and it's the largest market company by a while. So what I'm saying is that yes, it is a niche, but our entire market is a subset of thousands of niche. It's not that neglectable as a niche.
it always depends on how you calculate that, and I would look into the calculation you have done with 45% really, because I don't trust really the number, because it really depends on
The truth is out there.
I mean, if you just have the EPC market for a special sector, or you're saying as all the bloody reports and consulting companies that you're saying, well, this is the water industry, it doesn't matter whether you're OEM.
He's off on the same tangents. Shall we
No,
let you
but it's always the same. And anyway, I sold a lot of equipment to containerized system. And camps, I mean, we talked about the Bundeswehr. So army camps, mining camps, wherever you have to build this infrastructure is a huge market. I mean, you have been to Australia. I mean, you have said this 5, 6, 7 times today because you want to get recognized that you are the guy who's traveling around. Even there, it's a huge market. I had customers with gold mines over there, with coal mines. There you have all these things. There must be huge market,
but
and they are huge companies. They are just focusing on that, right?
You have 2.2 billion people who don't have access to water. You have 56% of the world's wastewater which is not treated today.
But
so
isn't that exactly the answer for that?
what I'm saying is that that's my point. Those places don't have infrastructure. If you don't have infrastructure, do you want to start by building big concrete tanks and digging up a network, or do you want to do something which might be a bit more plug and play? I'm doing on purpose using the word plug and play because that's something I like to discuss as well. But I think when you don't have any infrastructure existing, it sounds like a pretty straightforward solution.
Absolutely. I've seen containerized solution in North America, especially in Canada. I mean, we all know Canada is a huge country, and there are a lot of communities but that's not connected, because to put a pipe into the soil costs a lot of money. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense. And to place something like a container where you have the entire infrastructure, even the example we discussed last time with the Indian cultures in North America, which are
Native Americans.
the Native Americans. Sorry, even there, you told me that there are many places out there, or one of your guests, right, who does not have any access. Why are we not just selling that? So I'm back to the point saying, well, we have all the solutions, but we can't sell it, or nobody wants that, or what is the issue here? Why we still have the 2.3?
Several billions of a market in the water industry is not nothing. You have to stop saying it's Mickey Mouse when it's not Mickey Mouse.
No, all I'm saying, but that would be a kind of solution, for instance, for these.
It is.
Yeah, but why? Why not? Why is it not used? That's
it is.
Well, I think
you said clearly last time, right, that you have these Americans, these Native
Niklas,
Americans.
come win your place on the microphone. He won't stop.
No, the point is
like a waterfall.
normally he's talking so mad, but really the point is, I mean, if that is part of the solution, I like containerized solution. Don't get me wrong. I think we should have even more because they are so flexible. You can build whatever you need into that, send it all over the world, put it on a lorry, and then you plug and play with that, and that's it, right? So why is it not more? That is really my question. Why is it just 5%?
I think the areas where we have more like water-intensive industries, which needs water supply or wastewater treatment applications, are more developing in the future. So also in developing countries are becoming more. So therefore, I think the market will grow also in these areas. We have seen it also in some parts of Africa, as we have seen it in Asia and Russia, where there is industrialization happening in these places, and also in South Africa, and where this is really beneficial. And then there is also the money coming into play, because this is really beneficial for the environment, and there is a lot of permitting going on also for treating the wastewater. And then there is the willing to invest in such a system.
According to my numbers, and then you believe them or you don't believe them, but
that doesn't matter.
The matter is, if the same way to estimate is used for all the parts of the market, at least the relative share cannot be too wrong. Can we agree on that one? What they show is that the containerized market is about 7 billion. The more interesting part is the growth of it. Utility water is growing at 2-3%. Containerized water is growing quite near to the double digit. It means that it sounds to be a solution which gets more adopted for the reason we've mentioned: off-site manufacturing, the possibility to have a controlled environment, build an infrastructure where there's no infrastructure, and also because you have these new business models. If you are the one which is supposed to operate that from remote, you probably prefer to have everything in your environment, which you just bring with the helicopter, rather than rely on the local contractor who will have to do the wiring, and if one wire is done wrong and then you have to fly the other end of the world just to correct one wire, you just ate all your margin. So I guess those are kind of the drivers. Now there's one thing which I'd like to grab your brain. A while ago I had the conversation with 𝘮𝘮𝘴𝘮, and we discussed about plug and play, because it sounds just so good. And 𝘮𝘮𝘮 has always this sense of finding the right formula which brings you the sense of what it is. And he says, to me, I'm not sure if it's plug and play. It sounds more like plug and pray. That's an interesting one. So
that's tough.
From your experience, do you have a 100% hit rate that all the time you plug it, it works exactly like you want it? Or do you also sometimes have bad experiences?
I also ask my colleagues about that, and they all say, well, I do not know a plant where the total process does not work at all. So I think for the total equipment, it was fine. Well, there is still some slight adjustments which has to be made. So we have like aeration system, and we had also a quite good learning curve on that you need to have a good influence of the water, of the air, that the heating becomes not too high in the blower. This was really a learning curve. And also, if you look to remote areas like Siberia, etc., you have a lot of temperature differences. So you have in the wintertime -50, in summertime 30 degrees. And this is also really when it becomes more like a cave if you do it wrong. So water drops everywhere. And then you really have to think about how you can adjust that and to fix that. So I think there has been a lot of learning done here, but so far as we have the capability to test everything up front, we are quite sure that the process is working.
But I can give you an example against that. I was operating in container plant in the Middle East, I think 3-4 years back. And then COVID hit us. And what happened after COVID? Nobody could go anywhere. So we had all to stay at home. So and this unit was somewhere, I think it was Saudi Arabia, and something broke. So we couldn't send someone. So we had massive phone calls, video calls to try to fix that. And then you get a worker on site, which you have to train somehow with your phone and someone with your video call to put that button, do that, do this. In the end, it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare if you have to do so. So the flexibility, you're fully right. I mean, plug and play there is never a plug and play 100%. There's always something you have to fix, either remote or you couldn't find out. I mean, even if you buy a car, we all know that, especially the French ones. So that's what I mean. You need to have the access to the unit, or you have at least the capabilities to send someone over there.
I think it's a
Even
matter
for
of
small things.
the way you set up your project as well. I have also one of my former guests on my podcast, Jacob Bossard. He has a company called Bossack, and a big portion of what they do is that they build and conceive containers in Belgium, which are made for sub-Saharan Africa. So they are shipping to Lesotho, they are shipping to Botswana. And part of his business model is to say, we have to have the agreement of the local authorities so that when we do the commissioning, they also put some people in charge of being next to us and learning along, so that I don't have to visit the plant for the first 3 years.
Exactly.
Because if I do, that means that as long as I'm flying, they don't have water. And if I have to fly to the other end of the world, well, I'm not making any profit when arguably doing business in sub-Saharan Africa is already not that profitable itself. So it is part of having the impact he aims to have this commissioning phase where you are taking the locals on board. And I would expect that to be even easier with local communities than it is with industrials, because I would guess if you go to an industrial site, well, the industrial company maybe doesn't have any water person and anyone to dedicate to be next to you and try to understand how that thing works.
Exactly. Well, this is really a sensitive area where the water plant goes from our side to the customer, and to be able that the customer is able to operate this plant. And this can sometimes be extended to the phase, and you really have to make sure that everyone understands that. And so as the water applications becoming more complicated in the past, especially with recycling plants, it's really mandatory to support the customer. And now we also have digital solutions to support that. And we have like cameras in the classes to also give some advice on the plants. This really supports us in that way. We really need to have trained persons also to do the commission, to do the training. And this is really key, and is sometimes challenging, of course.
So let's try to conclude our deep dive with a table with the plus and the minus. On the plus side, I'll take the last thing you just said, which is digitalization is an enabler. So you can be digitally out there, even if your container is at the other end of the world. You said it's easier for construction. Drop in if there are things which I'm forgetting. I won't be getting everything myself. But you don't need any permit on site. You just need a slab and you put your container on it.
It's pretty fast. I mean, if you have built this container, I mean, you do this standardized somehow. You can have customized, but you have also standardized solution. If you have a standardized solution, you can build up a container in a very short time, and then you, of course, ship it everywhere. If you have to go on site with all the material and you have to build everything, it takes just longer. Yeah. So you can reach to areas where others have more issues going there.
And you can cut also the prices. If you have standardized solutions, with everything is the same, and you can just copy and paste it, then you also have
price benefit, clearly.
Do you have some of, I mean, we are in one of the containers. I'll put here some footage of the drone so that you see a bit what we have around. It's not the only container. All the containers which we see on the parking lot, are they standard or are they all customized on projects?
they're customized so far, but we have some standardized one. Well, the renting ones for flotation units, etc. But also for the mining industry, we did some T-types, we call that. So there were several floors stacked on each other, and this was just copy and paste after we had the initial layout of that.
For me, still, it is a huge opportunity. Not only
Those are the advantages. We have to look at the drawbacks before the.
okay, but another advantage. I mean, we will come to the drawbacks. Is, for instance, if I am at a big industrial plant, let's take BASF, and I'm operating a containerized plant for, I don't know, for wastewater somewhere in Singapore, and I don't need that anymore. I can take that and bring it to Ludwigshafen or bring it to somewhere else and use it there further. So isn't that the key in future, that we should put everything in containers? So for instance, we are here close to Darmstadt, right? Darmstadt is Merck. Okay. Right, one of the big chemical industry companies we have in Germany. So shouldn't they act same? So everything. I know that they don't have everything in containers, but then they could send it everywhere.
I have not introduced you, Björn, but Björn is a black and white person. So whether we do everything in containers or we do nothing in containers, there's nothing in between. So
I wouldn't go that way, because as is really...
Okay, what is the drawback?
Industrial wastewater is always different. And
everybody's saying that.
Yeah, but it is. So treatment plants are looking different. And if you have different wastewater streams and composition in the amount, everything is different and doesn't fit anymore in such a container. So in some extent, you can just put another one beside and extend that, but to use it as a different purpose, that's a really challenging task, and most of the time I would not say very profitable.
So drawback, not every water lends itself to standardization. Some waters still need to have this level of customizing. And as soon as you customize one of these, this one is not so packed because we are standing on one part of the equipment. So
I think it's not ready.
That's a reason.
Think it's not ready.
But when you see the ones which are like really, really packed, you get that if you change something, you have to redo all your calculation. Is that right? Does that fit everything? So
I think one of the drawbacks is you are limited in capacity.
Are you?
I mean, for sure, you can build a 500 million cubic meter a day plant or hour plant with containers. Sure, it is somehow possible, but
you have no scale effect.
You have no scale effect. It doesn't make any sense anymore if you reach a specific size, right?
In some areas, it is adaptable. So you have like 100 cubic meters per one train, like the T-type. We have like 250 cubic meters per unit. And then we scaled it up to, was it 750, something like this? And it can be extended. And well, if there is too much technical things inside, you really have to consider if maybe a big hole does it also.
So what you're saying is that it's a good solution for small up to middle, and Björn, because Björn has in mind this 500 million cubic meter per hour, and that for sure is not the kind of thing you would fit in a container. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can build a container and you can put everything in one container, then you can treat a certain amount. And if this amount doubles, you copy just this container.
Yeah.
But you can just copy this up to a certain level, because then it doesn't make any sense. Then you take the first container and you put everything, membranes there, or the PLC in the second, or the aerations in the third, because then this makes more sense, this kind of configuration.
But
even then, this will reach a level limit.
Is that another typical example of this typical German word "Jein," in the sense that
now you have to play this Jein song from this German band?
I don't know it.
I will send it to you.
I'll put it in the cutting. That's the Jein song. We'll discover something, guys. I'm with the Germans here.
Ja, nein, ich mein, Jein. Soll ich's wirklich machen oder lass ich's lieber sein?
I was thinking of the Jein element because on a very, very, very big plant, it might start to make sense to have a 40-foot container who does the chemical dosing for the backwash of the membranes.
Yeah.
You know, these kind of sub-assemblies might make sense.
It is that you add just, I mean, you have your plant and then you just add one step because you have a side stream and you want to pre-treat, and then you can use whatever which is in the container. Sure, that makes sense. Absolutely.
So if I get you right, both of you, we just found out that there are more advantages than drawbacks to that solution of containerized, and you would want to see the entire world in containers, and we tell you that there is a reality you have to cope with. Nevertheless, we agree that we would see more of those probably in the future.
Yeah,
right. Of course.
I agree with that, and I'm pretty sure that we would see in future that someone will come and say, well, your industrial wastewater can be treated all the same. One day, someone will come and say, I have a technology and I can solve each and every problem with this one technology.
I think that already exists. You take whatever water, you put it through a reverse osmosis and it works.
No,
It's just going to be incredibly expensive, incredibly stupid, incredibly...
Oh, come on.
It's really corrosive afterwards.
Not
or
long.
it's
It will work
clogging-
for some minutes, but...
No, but all I'm saying is one day, someone will come and will disrupt that and will say, hey, give me whatever that is. There's a lot of TOC, there's a lot of organic, there's a lot of whatever in, and I can handle it. I can treat that.
I really have to prevent myself here from making jokes because the German in Germany telling me that everything should be like that, and that you can find a one fits all. I'm so tempted. I will have to control myself in the editing not to put something crazy.
That's a good one. We had the experience once, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the best treatment solution is nature itself. Well, there's so much processes which we are adapting from nature.
Very true.
But if there are concentration levels where nature does not cope with that anymore, then we can step in. But to say nature is the solution for that, I would say.
Good conclusion. Thank you very much. Thanks for being
You
with
have
us.
to be back. You have a good sense of the conclusion, so that's helping a lot. So thank you, Niklas, and
Thank you.
I hope that we will get to see, because here it is fully assembled, fully mounted. I would love to see that in the field, like to really see how that, I mean, one of the bad cases which don't exist because EnviroChemie does that perfectly, but other companies which are having trouble, because I think trouble is a good opportunity to understand really the guts of a process. But I didn't want to open a sidetrack. I'm just sharing my excitement here. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I guess that was a cool one, at least for me from the inside. I hope it was for you too. What did you think, Björn?
Clearly, containerized solution is for me, together with mobile applications, with these things, clearly one of the drivers for the future. I think we can solve a lot of problems we see all over the world with this kind of solution. And I think the numbers we have seen will definitely grow up. I'm not sure whether they are right or not, and let's not open that debate. But containerized solution, what kind of application, wherever you can send them to, that's definitely something I'm really curious about the future for that.
I would even double down on what you say, because when we see the water conference, which is happening next month in New York, well, maybe instead of discussing atmospheric water generator, they should be discussing about rolling out this kind of containerized solutions, which we do know would be a good fit in many of the places. So I'd be curious to have your feedback as our regular and well-loved listeners and watchers. What did you think of containerized? Do you believe it might have an even brighter future than what we describe? And as well, I'd be curious to know if you have the same impression than me, that Björn was quite wrong with his editorial, that we do collaborate quite a lot in this industry. I'd be curious.
Give me the events and we will put them, I don't want to say show notes, but let's say we want to place them somewhere where you can go to and then you can cooperate.
I don't even know why he's talking about events, like you need events. You just go and meet people.
But you need, there must be a reason. Meeting without a reason is like it's just coffee drinking.
Unless you are able to raise the right questions and to and to be discussing with people. But he's not good with human connection. He's German.
But I'm pretty happy that at least you learned a new word or at least a new song.
Yeah, actually, I guess I will have it now in my head because of having listened to it while editing. So thank you, Björn. I'm not sure I can thank you for that one, but thank you, Björn. And thank you, everybody. And let's see you next month again in Germany.
Hopefully.
But maybe
it's
with
a nice place.
a bit of a hotter weather.
We will try. We'll do our best. Thank you, everybody, for watching us and see you next month.